When our soldiers were fighting and dying on the beaches of Normandy or the sands of Saipan, FDR was signing a bill. This single piece of legislation would change the lives of those who came home forever. As the author of Over Here, Edward Humes, told me, I believe the World War II era GI Bill was one of the most important pieces of legislation, not just in the 20th century, but in the entire history of the United States. It was one of the truly transformational, great, and positive acts of Congress. Soon after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the President and Congress knew they would need a plan for the eventual returning servicemen. As the number of servicemen grew into the millions, they explored various options for the returning veterans. From bonuses to pensions, a new idea came from the American Legion. The Legion proposed that a veteran could exchange a rifle for a diploma and a home. The GI Bill of Rights, or the Servicemen's Readjustment Act of 1944, unlocked the American dream for returning soldiers. The GI Bill had the power to change the lives of 16 million servicemen and their families throughout its immediate financial support, educational benefits, and home loans. America had feared that the returning 16 million soldiers would throw the nation into another depression. Instead, there was an economic surge and expanded middle class, all made possible by the GI Bill. From colonial times to the Civil War, America explored a variety of ways to provide benefits for the veterans who fought to defend their country. The General Pension Act of 1862 provided disability payments and benefits for Union soldiers and their widows, children, and relatives. These pensions were expanded in 1890, more than doubling their expenditures. Across the nation, there was a big backlash against the costs. Thus, when the soldiers returned from World War I, they were originally given mustering out pay. Disabled veterans still received some payments. However, in 1924, Congress decided to give the World War I vets a one-time bonus for time served. The catch: the bonuses would not be given out until 1945. When the nation went into the Great Depression, the veterans wanted their bonuses paid immediately, not years in the future. To lobby for the bill, a group led by Walter Waters headed to D.C. Soon, they were joined by 20,000 veterans and their families from across the country. But their efforts were not successful. The mood of the bonus army grew angrier. Hoover, fearing violence, called in the army to evict the veterans from Hooverville, their shanty town. The nation was shocked to see on the newsreels our own troops attacking our own veterans. This event was engraved into the memories of the President, Congress, and the American Legion. So when millions of young Americans left home to fight in Europe and the Pacific, the leaders of Congress, FDR, and the American Legion began to explore ideas to provide for future returning soldiers when peace would finally come. You wouldn't think that passing a bill to help the returning millions of veterans would be difficult, but it was. Congress had begun to explore a variety of ideas for the veterans. At one point, there were 600 bills and ideas floating around Congress. The problems were compounded by thousands of disabled veterans discharged with no support, no money, no benefits. In 1943, the American Legion stepped in on both accounts. The radio and newspaper campaign in support of mustering out pay resulted in the public support for the disabled veterans legislation and increased awareness about the broader veterans issues. The problem with all the bills floating around Congress was that they were supported by different legislators and fell under different committees. It was a real fear that all these bills would result in nothing. They could just cancel each other out. So the American Legion stepped forward in December 1943 with a committee of legislative experts, and by January 6, 1944, they had created a proposed omnibus bill. This bill became known as the GI Bill of Rights. Key points of the bill included education or vocation training opportunity, readjustment allowances or unemployment compensation, loans to veterans for homes, farms, or small businesses, concentrate all benefits under one agency, Veterans Administration. Any veteran, male or female, white or minority, who served 90 days or more and was not dishonorably discharged was eligible for the GI Bill. They had an opportunity to exchange a rifle for a diploma and a home, and other benefits. The bill was passed unanimously by the Senate, but deep opposition was encountered in the House. There was resistance to various provisions, most notably the education portion and unemployment benefits. There were congressmen who could not support the idea that the GI Bill was for all races and genders. The American Legion used its political base to overcome the opposition. But there were serious problems in the House, primarily from powerful Congressman Rankin, a racist who strongly opposed any universal access for minorities. But there was a slight difference in the two bills, so it was taken to a joint Senate-House Conference Committee. If the bill didn't pass in committee, it would be lost. The 7 senators voted yes, but House members were split 3-3, with Congressman Gibson absent due to illness. He had given his proxy to Rankin, but Rankin refused to vote for the bill. So then, most dramatic encounter occurred on a rainy night in Georgia when there was a race to save the bill. With the help of Georgia State Police, U.S. Army, Eastern Airlines, and numerous volunteers, Gibson was located and flown to D.C. barely in time. Gibson said as he cast his vote, "Americans are dying today in Normandy, the greatest invasion in all of history. I'm going to hold a press conference after this meeting and castigate anyone who dares vote against this bill." And with that, the vote became unanimous. FDR signed it into law June 22, 1944, while the war was still raging. Before the war, only 40% of Americans graduated from high school and 5% from college. The GI Bill changed that. People predicted that only 700,000 veterans would use education benefits. Others thought the GIs would do poorly. But by 1947, half of all the students in college were veterans. The president of Harvard said that the GIs were the best students they ever had. Edward Humes told me that many thousands of scientists went to school on the GI Bill, along with an army of doctors, dentists, lawyers, accountants, engineers, teachers, to become the generation that built modern America after World War II.
So the first thing to say is that we are sitting at a University of California campus, and the incredible expansion of the University of California system wouldn't have been possible without the GI Bill, because it brought so many tens of thousands of students into the system.
The unexpected huge number of students led to the massive growth of colleges and training schools around the country. This is how college education became the commonplace instead of rare.
I'd like to go on either UCLA or USC, but at that point, I was on about a 2-year waiting list.
While many minorities, especially in the South, encountered obstacles to get their education on the GI Bill, Arthur Fox was able to exchange his rifle for a new lifestyle for him and his family.
My father, as I said, departed from the military at 18. He was young, so he used the GI Bill to go to college. He became a television engineer, came to City College of San Francisco, where he studied and graduated. He was the first in his family to graduate from college. The way that it changed our lives is, as it turned out, everybody in my family, actually all of us had master's degrees, but we all got our BAs from the University of California, which would have never happened had my father not gotten a GI Bill and been able to give us a good middle-class life.
While 8 million got education or training, there was substantially bigger percentage of male veterans that used their benefits than women. Here's a graph of college grads by gender over the 20th century. You can see the huge bump of male graduates from the GI Bill in 1950, but notice its impact on the children and grandchildren as college graduation became more commonplace. The granddaughters of the GI veterans now outgraduate males. The same pattern followed with home loans. Affordable home ownership was made possible for all veterans, but in reality it was still more difficult for minorities because of local segregation.
When my parents went to go buy their first home in 1953, they were not allowed to buy a home where they wanted to buy, and actually had to buy a home in a neighborhood that housed people who were coming home from the Japanese internment centers.
Home ownership created a burst in the economy, so did consumer spending, leading to decades of economic growth, creating the expansion of the American middle class.
I got a GI Bill, a loan, GI loan, and I got a good interest rate. We built many homes for homeowners that got their loans through the GI Bill.
The GI Bill gave the opportunity for the returning World War II servicemen and servicewomen to exchange a rifle for a diploma and a home. Even though the GI Bill encountered opposition and almost lost by 1 vote, the legislation opened doors for the 16 million veterans. It expanded the American middle class and made higher education an obtainable part of the American dream. The government's investment was repaid in less than 10 years due to the economic boom it created. So there was a GI Bill for every conflict, from Korea through Desert Storm. But over the years, the education benefits were no longer as powerful. Senator Jim Webb changed that.
Those who have been serving since 9/11, the same educational benefits as those who served during World War II.
Now we can honor the service of men and women with the opportunity to exchange a rifle for a diploma and a home.
But then his number came up and he was gone with the draft. He's in the army now, a blowin' reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. They made him blow a bugle for his Uncle Sam. It really brought him down because he could